Part 1, The Rise of Empires. The year is 1000. The great empire of sanctity has been formed in San Marino. The leader, Marcus, is hell-bent on invading and taking over the continent of Europe. He has 10,000 armed swordsmen and a sacred relic with unknown powers. But over in Denmark, a new empire of Frosthaven has formed. This resilient and resourceful country plans on taking over the entirety of Europe. Frosthaven is equipped with the finest 10,000 swordsmen and skilled seafarers. As this new era of violence and expansion begins, the Empire of Sanctity decides to attempt to research gunpowder to give themselves an advantage in future conflicts, and thus, the scientists of Sanctity begin attempting to research gunpowder. Their first attempts are met with some difficulty, but they eventually manage to create some crude hand cannons. However, these guns are useless as they lack any sort of ammunition, and can only be fired once or twice before becoming completely ineffective. The Empire of Frosthaven decides to launch a diplomatic mission to the nearby Duchy of Finland to attempt to negotiate the annexation of their lands into the Empire of Frosthaven. However, the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, Pope Clement III, has decided that he will invade and take the Kingdom of Sweden, as well as the lands around the Baltic Sea. The Pope also plans on invading the Duchy of Finland and bringing it under the fold of the Holy Roman Empire. The Pope sends his best diplomat to the Kingdom of Sweden. But the diplomat is killed and the Pope declares war. The Holy Roman Empire sends 10,000 knights and archers. They arrive and begin an all-out attack on the kingdom. As the Holy Roman Empire prepares to march on the Kingdom of Sweden, they receive a message from the Emperor of Frosthaven. The message states, "We have been informed of your plans to attack the Kingdom of Sweden. Please refrain from doing so. We are prepared to launch a diplomatic mission of our own and negotiate an agreement." The Pope, who is still furious over the killing of his diplomat, sends back a letter saying, "You are too late. My armies are already on the march. You have left us no choice but to defend ourselves. Prepare yourselves for war." The Empire of Sanctity decides to launch a diplomatic mission to nearby Vatican City to attempt to negotiate the annexation of their lands into the Empire of Sanctity. Meanwhile, the Empire of Frosthaven has been secretly preparing their own research into gunpowder. They have managed to recruit an expert alchemist from the East who has already made significant progress in creating functional firearms. Meanwhile, the Empire of Sanctity launches their diplomatic mission to attempt to negotiate the annexation of Vatican City. The envoy, a seasoned diplomat named Lucius, arrives at the gates of Vatican City with a grand procession of soldiers and courtiers. He is escorted to the throne room of the Pope, where he presents Marcus's proposal for the annexation of their lands. The Pope listens carefully, his expression unreadable. After some deliberation, he announces that while he appreciates the strength and ambition of the Empire of Sanctity, he cannot in good conscience allow such a powerful nation to absorb Vatican City into its fold. The Empire of Frosthaven, threatened by the Pope's declaration of war, decide to, with the help of their recently recruited expert alchemist from the East, attempts to research firearms. Meanwhile, the sacred relic in the possession of the Empire of Sanctity is discovered to have the power to raise the dead, which Marcus decides to use to his advantage. He orders his swordsmen to march across Europe, raising an army of undead warriors as they go. Meanwhile, the Empire of Frosthaven attempts to research firearms. The alchemist from the East, skilled in the art of transmutation, begins his work in a secret laboratory hidden deep within the empire. Using his knowledge of ancient texts and arcane rituals, he begins the arduous process of creating gunpowder. As the days turn into weeks, he tirelessly experiments with different recipes, enduring numerous failures and near disasters before finally succeeding in creating a small quantity of the volatile substance. The Empire of Sanctity, furious at the refusal, decides to use the recently discovered power of the sacred relic to raise the dead, to raise an army of undead soldiers and use them to aid as they attempt a conquest of Vatican City. The undead army is unleashed upon Vatican City, causing chaos and destruction. The once peaceful city is now a battleground as the living and the dead clash. The Pope, horrified by the events unfolding before him, orders his clerics to perform exorcisms on the undead soldiers. The conflict rages on for several days, with neither side gaining a clear advantage. Meanwhile, in Frosthaven, the Empire's expert alchemist has successfully created functional firearms. These weapons are far more advanced than the crude hand cannons of Sanctity, and can be reloaded multiple times. Hearing of the events in Vatican City, Frosthaven decides to intervene and sends their seafarers to aid the Vatican in repelling the invaders. The undead army, now under the control of the alchemist from Sanctity, begins to show signs of intelligence and adaptability. They no longer mindlessly attack, instead, they form ranks and coordinate their efforts under the command of the necromancer. The battle for Vatican City becomes even more brutal as the living and the dead engage in a savage struggle for control. The Frosthaven fleet arrives at the shores of Italy, led by their skilled seafarers. They disembark their soldiers, who swiftly march toward Vatican City to aid the Pope's forces. Upon arrival, they find themselves caught in the midst of a horrific battle between the undead and the defenders of the Vatican. The Frosthaven soldiers quickly form ranks and engage the enemy, using their superior firearms to devastating effect. The undead army, now under the control of the necromancer from Sanctity, begins to retreat toward the safety of the Vatican walls. However, they are pursued relentlessly by the Frosthaven forces. The necromancer, realizing that he is losing control of the battle, attempts to summon a powerful demon to aid them. A massive infernal creature materializes in the sky, breathing fire and destruction upon the Frosthaven soldiers. The Frosthaven forces, despite the fearsome appearance of the demon, remain steadfast. Their veteran soldiers form a phalanx against the undead horde while their marksmen target the necromancer. After a brutal struggle, they manage to corner the necromancer and the demon. The Frosthaven forces close in, surrounding the necromancer and the demon. The air is thick with the stench of smoke and the screams of the dying. The necromancer, realizing that his fate is sealed, desperately attempts to summon more undead soldiers. However, the combined efforts of the Pope's clerics and the Frosthaven forces are too much for him to overcome. The demon, enraged by the failure of its servant, unleashes a torrent of hellfire upon the Frosthaven soldiers. The flames engulf the area, burning soldiers and undead alike. In the midst of the chaos, a lone figure emerges from the smoke and fire. It is the Emperor of Frosthaven, who has come personally to ensure the victory of his forces. His presence galvanizes the soldiers, and they renew their efforts with renewed vigor. The demon, distracted by the Emperor's arrival, is struck down by a volley of arrows fired by the Frosthaven marksman. With its death, the tide of the battle turns decisively in favor of the Frosthaven forces. The necromancer, defeated and humiliated, is taken prisoner. The Emperor, in a show of mercy, spares his life, but strips him of his power and exiles him from Frosthaven. The Pope, grateful for their aid, bestows upon the Emperor a title of nobility, making him a Duke of the Vatican. The two leaders forge an alliance, vowing to work together to maintain peace and order in their lands. The surviving undead soldiers are put down, and their bodies given a proper burial. The city of Vatican City is left in ruins, but the people are safe. The Frosthaven soldiers begin the long process of rebuilding and restoring the city, while the Vatican's clerics work to heal the wounded and bring comfort to those who have lost loved ones. The alliance between Frosthaven and the Vatican strengthens as they work together to rebuild and protect their lands. The Emperor, now known as the Duke of Vatican, spends much of his time in the city, overseeing reconstruction efforts and forging new friendships with the Pope and other nobles. He is welcomed with open arms by the people of Vatican City, who see in him not only a protector, but also a symbol of hope for a brighter future. The Pope, grateful for the Emperor's support and wisdom, often seeks his counsel on matters of state and war. The two leaders become close allies, sharing strategies and resources to maintain peace and stability in their respective realms. Their bond grows stronger with each passing day, and it is said that their partnership is unbreakable. The Empire of Frosthaven, flushed with their recent victory in and close alliance with Vatican City, decides to attempt to establish diplomatic relations with the Kingdom of Sweden. A delegation, led by their most skilled diplomat, is sent to the Swedish court. They arrive at the capital city of Stockholm and are greeted by the King of Sweden. The diplomat presents a formal letter from the Emperor of Frosthaven, offering an alliance and promising mutual protection against the aggressive expansionist policies of the Holy Roman Empire. The King of Sweden, weighing his options carefully, agrees to consider the proposal. Over in the Holy Roman Empire, Pope Clement III, growing impatient with the lack of progress in the war against the Kingdom of Sweden, decides to take matters into his own hands. He secretly assembles a small force of his most trusted knights and archers and sets out to conquer the Duchy of Finland himself. His plan is to use this strategic foothold to launch a more successful invasion of Sweden. Meanwhile, the diplomatic relations between the Empire of Frosthaven and the Kingdom of Sweden continue to progress. After much discussion and negotiation, the two nations agree to sign a treaty of mutual defense and alliance. This treaty not only solidifies their relationship but also presents a formidable challenge to the Holy Roman Empire's expansionist ambitions. The Empire of Sanctity, their armies destroyed, decide to attempt to negotiate a union with Italy. Their emperor, Marcus, sends an envoy to Rome to discuss the possible union between the Empire of Sanctity and Italy. The envoy, Marcus Aurelius, arrives in the Eternal City and is escorted to the Vatican where he meets with Pope Innocent. The two leaders engage in long discussions about the benefits of such an alliance. Marcus Aurelius argues that the Empire of Sanctity could provide military protection for the Vatican, while Italy could offer economic and cultural advantages. In turn, the Pope suggests that such an alliance could strengthen the Christian faith throughout Europe and help to spread the message of peace and prosperity. After several weeks of negotiations, a treaty is finally signed, marking the official union of the Empire of Sanctity and the Vatican. Marcus Aurelius is welcomed as a brother emperor, and his rule is acknowledged over the territories that once belonged to the Empire of Frosthaven. The people of Vatican City celebrate this historic event with great fanfare, lighting bonfires and holding feasts in honor of their new emperor. In response to the loss of Vatican City through its union with the Empire of Sanctity, the Empire of Frosthaven decides to attempt to strengthen diplomatic relations with the Kingdom of Sweden. A diplomatic envoy is sent to the Swedish court, bearing gifts and promises of mutual protection against the Holy Roman Empire's aggressive expansionist policies. The King of Sweden, recognizing the threat posed by the Pope's ambitions, agrees to enter into negotiations with the Empire of Frosthaven. As these delicate talks proceed, word reaches the Pope of the Empire of Frosthaven's attempts to create firearms. Incensed by this perceived threat to his power, Pope Clement III issues a papal bull excommunicating the entire Empire of Frosthaven, declaring all its citizens to be outside the protection of the Holy Roman Church, and calling for a holy crusade against them. The excommunication has a profound effect on the Empire of Frosthaven. Many of its citizens, previously loyal to the Pope, begin to question their allegiance. The emperor, recognizing the severity of the situation, musters his forces and prepares for war. Meanwhile, news of the Pope's actions reach the Kingdom of Sweden. The king, already alarmed by the aggressive expansionist policies of the Holy Roman Empire, is now even more determined to resist their encroachment. He declares his support for the Empire of Frosthaven and begins preparations for a joint defense. In the Holy Roman Empire, Marcus, Emperor of Sanctity, reacts to the news of the excommunication with a mixture of anger and determination. He sees it as a challenge to his authority and vows to crush the Empire of Frosthaven once and for all. He assembles his armies and marches towards their borders, intent on reclaiming the lands they have stolen and restoring the Holy Roman Church to its former glory. The Empire of Sanctity, after hearing of the strengthened alliance between the Empire of Frosthaven and the Kingdom of Sweden, but more so about the excommunication of Frosthaven by Pope Clement III of the Holy Roman Empire, decides to attempt to become the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire diplomatically and through manipulation due to their army still being destroyed. Their emperor, Marcus Aurelius, sends an envoy to Rome to discuss the possibility of Marcus becoming the new emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, with the blessing of Pope Clement III. The envoy arrives in Rome and is escorted to the Vatican where he meets with Pope Clement III. The two leaders engage in long discussions about the benefits of such an alliance. Marcus Aurelius argues that the Empire of Sanctity could provide military protection for the Holy Roman Empire, while also bringing a renewed focus on Christianity and its teachings. He promises to rebuild the Holy Roman Empire into a glorious empire, greater than it has ever been. Pope Clement III listens carefully to Marcus Aurelius' proposals and, after much consideration, agrees to support his candidacy for the throne. However, he insists that Marcus must first prove his loyalty to the Catholic Church and its teachings. Marcus Aurelius agrees to these terms, vowing to uphold the Church's authority and work closely with the Pope to ensure the well-being of the Holy Roman Empire and its people. With the Pope's blessing, Marcus Aurelius begins a campaign to win the support of the nobles and citizens of the Holy Roman Empire. He travels throughout the empire, speaking of his vision for a restored and prosperous empire, guided by the teachings of Christ. His charisma and intelligence win him many followers, but he also faces opposition from those who fear the loss of power and influence under a new emperor. The race for the throne intensifies as word spreads of Marcus Aurelius' candidacy. Other nobles begin to vie for the position, each promising their own version of restoration and renewal. The people of the empire grow restless, yearning for stability and leadership. In the midst of this turmoil, the Pope calls for a grand conclave to be held in Vatican City, where the most influential nobles and church officials will gather to decide the fate of the empire. Marcus Aurelius arrives at the Vatican, his retinue of advisors and soldiers surrounding him. He is greeted warmly by Pope Clement III, who commends him on his efforts so far. The conclave begins, with each noble making their case for why they should be the next emperor. Marcus Aurelius delivers a passionate speech, outlining his vision for a united and prosperous Holy Roman Empire, guided by the teachings of Christ. He promises to work closely with the Pope and uphold the authority of the Catholic Church, while also restoring the empire to its former glory. As the debate continues, Marcus Aurelius' rivals begin to grow desperate. Some attempt to smear his reputation, spreading rumors of heresy and ambition. Others resort to threats and intimidation, hoping to sway the vote in their favor. But Marcus Aurelius remains steadfast, maintaining his composure and dignity in the face of these attacks. Pope Clement III listens carefully to each speech, weighing the merits of each candidate. He is impressed by Marcus Aurelius' devotion to both the Church and the Empire, as well as his vision for a restored Holy Roman Empire. As the conclave draws to a close, the tension in the room is palpable. Everyone in attendance knows that the fate of the empire hangs in the balance. Finally, the Pope rises to his feet, his voice carrying through the chamber. It is with great pride and humility that I announce the new emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, Marcus Aurelius. The room erupts into cheers and applause as Marcus Aurelius is crowned with a golden crown, signifying his new title. He bows his head in gratitude to the Pope and to those who have supported him on this journey. Due to the Empire of Sanctity's recent ascension to being the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, the Empire of Frosthaven decides to attempt a naval invasion of the Kingdom of Norway to expand their territory. A fleet of warships, led by the most experienced admiral, sails towards the coast of Norway. They land at the capital city of Oslo and are met with fierce resistance from the kingdom's well-trained navy and army. The battle rages on for days, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The Frosthaven forces, however, are better equipped and disciplined, and eventually manage to gain the upper hand. The Norwegian king, realizing the futility of further resistance, agrees to negotiate terms of surrender. In the meantime, news of the naval invasion reaches the Empire of Sanctity. Marcus, enraged by this act of aggression, mobilizes his army and navy, preparing for a two-front war. He knows that he must act swiftly if he is to successfully defend his empire and maintain his authority. The Pope issues a second papal bull, excommunicating the Emperor of Frosthaven and declaring a crusade against him personally, hoping to rally the Holy Roman Army to greater fervor.